Lobo from The Real Las Vegas, and today I am interviewing Ruth Furman of Image Words Communications. We are going to find out all about Ruth's business and what Image Words actually does for their clients. So Image Words Communications is a PR firm. So that is public relations, correct?
Public relations, marketing communications, brand strategy. I think every PR firm is a little different.
Okay.
So for us, it's kind of whatever is going to help the client, brand, or individual best.
Okay. So how do you decide what is going to serve them best? Do you have a strategy that you use?
It is totally a strategy developed through conversations. And it has definitely evolved. That strategy has evolved over the years since I started my business. Some other firms that I know and I work with have a very specific strategy. For me, it really is all about, like I said, helping.
Yeah.
Because I used to come into relationships with my team sort of with an assumption, this is what you need, this is what we do. But I find, that especially recently, as my business has evolved, clients' needs have evolved, so I just don't make any assumptions anymore. I have a conversation about what they need, what helps them, and then we kind of build our services around that.
That's brilliant, because I know I used to kind of do very specific step-by-step in my real estate business. And then I realized, you know what, I'm missing so many key elements by not just getting to know people. And so now I have a series of discovery calls that we have and, find out what's important to them, what way they want to go with it. So how did you get into this industry?
So I got into the industry in a very roundabout way. I was a journalism major in college, and even in high school, I was in theater and a little bit of writing. So I always liked to share stories from a very, very early age. So I had a journalism job right out of college and with a magazine, and it evolved into writing about marketing and promotions to help retailers. And I really liked that. Like, that was my favorite type of writing, the type of writing that helped people make their businesses better. So then through that job, I got a corporate PR job and then opened my own firm. So I totally fell into it.
That's awesome, though, because it just has evolved through the years. And I don't know, I think that's the best way. I always find it interesting how people landed on what they're doing in their industry.
I remember in college, I did take a public relations class and I liked it, but I didn't really see myself going that route. I always saw myself being a print and broadcast journalist. And so now the way my business has evolved, I kind of get to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I feel really lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I was doing some research on you. Even though I know you, I was doing some research and I found an article that you were a recipient of a Woman of Distinction Award in 2019 from NAWBO, Southern Nevada.
I was. It was such a huge honor. It was such a huge honor. And yeah, I did win a Women of Distinction Award. I also have been lucky enough to receive some other awards. And I'm always kind of like the first to nominate others and the last to nominate myself.
Right.
But I think awards are, certainly very flattering, but also really fantastic for kind of brand integrity and, external reinforcement for sure, but also credibility.
Right.
Because when people Google you and see you won an award, and I tell my clients that too, and I encourage my clients to try for every single award opportunity. And then one of my ninja strategies is, if they're a finalist we knock out some content immediately about them being a finalist, because even if they're not an honoree, that's still a really great content for social media.
Right.
And a really good way for them to shine brighter.
Right. So do you have, I don't want to give away, everything that you do and offer to your clients, but do you have any like go-to things that you can tell, business owners who might be struggling, who want to kind of up their game of getting their business out there to the public? What would be one thing that you would share with them to do, like today?
And it is very, very simple to say, but sometimes hard to do. And what it is, it's 2 words: say something. So I tell everyone that, including myself.
Right.
Because I think sometimes when we're struggling, we freeze a little bit and we get really quiet.
Yeah.
Because we don't necessarily feel like we're at our best.
Right.
So I say something. So that could mean a lot of different things. In many cases, it's social media content. In some cases, it's a public relations strategy where you're keeping yourself, your company, and your brand out there.
Yeah.
So one very simple hack, when we were talking pre-interview, you mentioned hacks. One simple hack that I love for say something,
right,
is say something about someone else. So if you don't really know what you want to say about yourself, and you don't necessarily have resources or initiative, or you're not ready to hire help, say something about someone else.
Yeah.
Promote a friend's business, promote a collaborator's business, promote a client's business.
Yeah.
On your social media, help with something, help someone else. And I did a lot of that during the pandemic myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of times as business owners, we're afraid to mention the blunders. We're afraid to mention the difficulties. We're afraid to mention the setbacks. And I think that sometimes that makes us so relatable to, our ideal client or, future clients, that they can see, oh, this isn't just the glossy, magazine cover. This is real life. This is the ebbs and flows of business, and every business has that. So I think it's, do you find value in sharing those types of stories as well?
I do find real value in sharing challenges. However, I'm going to be super authentic.
Yeah.
That my natural tendency is to be a little bit of a victim. And I fight that every day in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a difference between sharing real challenges and being super negative and victim-y.
Right.
Because I find that negativity and the victim mindset can really draw opportunity away from us.
True. So how would you frame a challenge?
How would I frame a challenge? I'm trying to think of some things that I have done. And I also think that toxic positivity annoys me.
Hold on. I love that you said that, but explain what toxic positivity is.
It's kind of one of those things that you know it when you see it or when you hear it. Like, oh, Ruthie, you have so much to be grateful for. Like, please, whatever, So, what is toxic positivity? It's just, spouting off cliches about gratitude.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's I heard on a podcast, and it's very true for me. Action is the antidote to anxiety. I want to say that's Gretchen Rubin, who's a happiness expert. So for me, action is the antidote to anxiety. So rather than talking about challenges, I pause and I do something radically different. And it always makes me feel better. Yeah.
Well, so you are a true inspiration to me. I don't know if I've told you this or not, but you do not quit. You are just one of those people that, I mean, and you'll say, you know what, I did not want to do, like, for instance, this workout today. But you know what? I got up and I did it anyway because I promised myself I would. That to me is so valuable, that you look at things that way, and it makes me feel, I mean, I love you, but it's like, oh, man, Ruth is doing it. She committed, she's doing it, she's taking, the initiative and sticking to what she said she was going to do. And it really does. Sometimes it really makes me feel bad. but I think it's good, because I think we do have to reflect on promises we did make to ourselves, and I made, promises to myself that I was going to be a healthier version of me than I have been the past few years. So you helped me with that a lot.
Yeah, and I'm also going to say, Eileen, on that note, another one of my favorite authors is, her name is Sherry Salata, and she wrote a book called The Beautiful No. And something that Sherry says that I think we all need to do for ourselves and people in our lives all the time is be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Sherry says, and I do it with myself, talk to yourself like you would a puppy or a newborn baby at the grocery store, is I think how she puts it. So it's like, I let myself down, I don't meet my goals. I blow off workouts, but I am very gentle with myself, and I start over much faster. Used to be, I'd miss a workout and then I wouldn't do another one for another week because I'd get out of the habit.
Right.
So now I am gentle with myself. Same thing with my eating, because I have a weight loss journey that I'm, super focused on.
Yeah.
I just, I'm going to rock some caramelized French onion dip and organic corn chips at Trader Joe's like it's my job. But then the next day, I'm going to make broccoli.
Right.
So, yeah. Right. So I just self-correct faster.
Well, and like I said, it's inspirational to me because, and that's, I guess part of what I was saying is sharing the journey. The journey isn't, smooth and no issues and, just goes like we had planned. There's bumps and there's, breakdowns and there's all kinds of things that happen, and we pick ourselves up and we do better next time.
Pausing also helps me a lot.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a former client and, we were all ready to kind of re-engage, and then, phone calls didn't happen that were supposed to happen. And I was like, ordinarily just kind of to self-protect, I might have shot off an email, like a long email, and said, here are all these reasons we're not going to work together. And I'm like, you know what? No, like, I'm just going to pause and just kind of like, let this play out.
Yeah.
I'm still not patient, but I'm way more patient than I used to be. And I think that helps me with PR too, because as a public relations company, we get a lot of no's. PR really is more than half, sales in my view, and I get a lot of no's. I'm sure that happens in real estate a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it gets discouraging, but it's like you said, I'm a little bit relentless, and I'm a little bit more patient, and maybe a little bit more of a chameleon as far as kind of sensing the other person's energy. And I'm maybe just a tiny bit less intense than I used to be.
Yeah.
Still pretty intense, but.
Well, it's so funny because I did not know that I was a very competitive person. And I'm competitive with myself. And I'm, I am my biggest, threat, my biggest ally, it's very odd for me because I just never considered myself that. And I've noticed that I used to get very down if I didn't have the next client coming in or the next thing coming in. And then I realized, you know what? All I have to do is continue to make chunk it off a little bit at a time, keep in communication with, my clients, because that's what my business is based on, is relationships. And so I find that the less, critical I am, the easier the people come when I need them to. And so, I mean, I'm just a big, I don't know, believer that the universe gives you what you need. So, obviously at times I've needed to rest, but I didn't realize that. So I continued to stress myself out over things that I didn't need to. But anyway, I mean, we could sit here and talk forever of all of the woes of being an entrepreneur and owning your own business. But I am very interested in how you came to Las Vegas. So, and if you consider Las Vegas your home.
I definitely consider Las Vegas my home, especially, recently, when I think about all of the, amazing relationships that I have. And I have some family here in addition to my husband. My sister-in-law now lives around the corner, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
When we moved, we moved in the same neighborhood. So I moved to Las Vegas from the Midwest. I was born in Wisconsin, grew up in Indiana, moved here from Chicago in 1999. And I moved here, it was kind of crazy because I'd been to Vegas, I'd been to conventions for my journalism jobs and my PR jobs. And I never in a million years thought I would live here. Like, do people really live here?
Yeah, you probably had no idea that there was actually, housing outside of hotels.
Yeah, like I remember was I here for the hardware show? No, it was way before the hardware show was here. I don't know. I was here for some trade show and I did some sort of like a little expedition where we went to see retail stores in Las Vegas. So I did know that there were neighborhoods, but I never saw myself here.
Yeah.
All my family at the time was back in the Midwest and it was just kind of like my landscape. So anyway, I was fixed up with my husband through his cousin and a friend of mine. And he had moved here from New York. Okay. And when we decided, when we got engaged and decided to get married, we had this deal that if I hated it here, he would consider moving to Chicago.
Yeah.
And I didn't hate it. Here I am.
You're still here since 1999. So you're definitely home.
Yeah. When we were considering downsizing and we thought for about a minute about maybe moving to Florida or something like that. But then when you think about moving, you really realize how much you love. There's so many things that I love about being here. And I think for my PR firm, Vegas, and especially the west side of town / Summerlin are really good for me. I have space at a co-working space, the Coop Co-working, the Coop Co-work and meeting rooms, which is 3 miles from my now house.
Right.
I think Vegas is a really, really good community for entrepreneurs, for business owners, and for PR.
Yeah.
I do work in other cities, and I love the work I do in other cities, but I really love having Vegas as my home base.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing place. We travel a lot, and we think about, oh, well, what if we moved here? What if we moved? And then we're like, no, it just doesn't feel like home. I mean, but we've both been, me and my husband, we've both been here over 40 years. So, which is amazing because I'm 35. Yeah, I'm not 35. But what do you wish that people knew about living in Las Vegas that, maybe might be considering moving here from the Midwest? What do you wish that they knew about Las Vegas that you don't think they know?
I think I want people to know that the fabric of our community is very warm and welcoming. Yeah. If you find the right spots.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I always tell people. It's about the community. If you're looking to build community, if you're looking to, join with other people, to collaborate with people who are like-minded, you'll find it. If you don't want to, then, you'll do what some people tell me, oh, Vegas, it's just people drive into their garage and shut the door and you never see them again. But that, I mean, that maybe at one time was my experience, but I think once I actually looked for community, I found it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that. It really is kind of, putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And, I find Vegas to be, very welcoming, and it really is about the people. And there are also some really awesome locally owned businesses here.
Oh, amazing locally owned businesses. And that is kind of one of the main areas that you serve, right? For your PR firm is locally owned businesses here in town?
It's evolved over the years, but it is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So I always have some awesome locally owned businesses in my back pocket. And, even if I kind of have a certain plan about my client roster, if like a really fantastic locally owned business, kind of pops up as a referral,
yeah,
it's the hardest to say no to.
Yeah, we have a great eclectic group of locally owned businesses, which is amazing. And it's always so nice to watch these local businesses thrive. It just makes me so happy. I mean, that you watch them expand and they outgrow their spaces. And so they need larger, buildings to move into. And I think it's amazing.
The other thing I love about locally owned businesses is I have another, a contractor here in town that is locally owned and also does work in some other states. But the locally owned businesses are super, super, super generous and giving with community engagement, and they can make decisions really fast. So I love that. I love doing the brand layering and the strategic philanthropy and the heart-centered philanthropy with my locally owned business clients. It's like my favorite work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I am going to link all of Ruth's information below this video. So if you are looking for a really fantastic PR firm, Ruth is who you want to reach out to. So, and as you can see, she really loves her clients, and that is her main focus, is to bring them value and exposure. I mean, I love that about you. So thank you so much for doing this interview with me today. And we will see you on the next interview. Bye.